Hi, it's Jan Hamning. I have a special guest with me today, Carol Richard from Canada, and we are going to be tapping today on food cravings through the holidays, surviving the holidays, continuing on from my online class that I just completed. And Carol, could you just tell me a little bit about what you do and where you live in Canada?
Yes. So my name is Carol Richards. I live in Prince Edward Island, Canada, a little island in Canada. I'm also an EFT practitioner, just like Jan. However, my specialty is with lack of sleep. So I work with my clients to help them find sleep again naturally. And we do that by looking at 5 different areas in their lives where they might be out of balance and they have stress and overwhelm, which the 5 areas are your health, your work, your family, money issues, or your spirituality. So we really break it down to see where the stress is, clean that up, and then sleep happens again naturally for most people.
Yeah, and Carol, if people are suffering with this, with lack of sleep because of whatever situations are going on in their life, how would they get in touch with you?
For now, I have my Facebook page, so they can just search Carol Richard EFT practitioner, and send me a message through my Facebook page. I'm in the process of revamping my website. So the one that I have up right now, they can go look at it. There's a contact information, but there's not much information on there, but that's carolrichardeft.com. And soon I'll have an updated website up there.
Great. Carol and I have been working together online. We meet on Zoom. We met through an online class for EFT, and we meet somewhat regularly to tap with each other and help each other clear our blocks and our false beliefs from the past, and so that we could move forward with our business and with our lives, just our personal lives. And so Carol was gracious enough to agree to tap with me on food cravings for the holidays, or what brings on these food cravings. So when I first asked Carol to do this, she immediately went to chocolate.
Yeah.
And then she emailed me and she's like, no, it's something else, something bigger. So what is it, Carol, that's causing you to overeat at the holidays?
Well, so in the office environment that I'm in, this time of year, it starts the chocolate, the chips, the cookies, the baked goods. So I had an email the other day that someone sent an email and said, I've just put some chocolate on the treat table, help yourself. And my immediate response was like, oh, I don't need those chocolates. Because yesterday, the day before, I ate probably a whole bag of chips.
So chips, yeah.
The chips for me, and so it's very difficult when the treat table is right in front of where I have to walk in to get to my office. And every time I walk by, if there's a bag of chips there, I just a handful. And the next thing you know, I have probably eaten 3/4 of that bag of chips during my work day.
Well, I know for a fact from working my online class of surviving the holidays and working with people with EFT, the holidays and work environment, office environment, and there goes Carol's little dog. The office environment is a huge problem with snacking. People bring snacks in and cookies and all this stuff, and they think it's a good thing. But then everybody else complains about it behind their back, like, quit bringing this stuff in. So, Carol, we're going to tap on the chips. And everybody out there watching this, if you'd like to tap along, you can replace that potato chips with whatever it is that you're having a problem with resisting. So, Carol, when you think about those potato chips, if they are potato chips, right? Or are they corn chips or just any?
No, they're potato chips.
Okay, so when you think about those potato chips and imagine yourself walking through that room where they have those chips sitting out there, how does that make you feel right now when you think about it?
Oof. There's a lot of anxiety coming up with knowing that they're there. Just knowing that they're there. Okay. Yeah, there's anxiety Just knowing that the minute I walk away from my desk, I have to walk by those chips.
Okay. Well, let's start with that, okay?
Yeah.
So you get like would that be like an anxious feeling in your
Yeah, it's like an anxious feeling, like, and it's in my chest.
Okay.
Just thinking of walking by them and resisting the temptation of grabbing a handful.
Just thinking of walking by the chips. You get this
Mm.
anxious feeling in your chest. Does it feel like anything in your chest? Does it have a shape or a color?
It's got like a constriction, like I would call it a constriction, kind of hard to breathe feeling, that anxious feeling.
Okay. And on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being really anxious, 0 being not anxious at all, where would that fall in that scale?
Right now I'm feeling like an 8.
Okay. So Carol knows the tapping process, so we're just going to start tapping and you can just follow along if you'd like. So even though I get this anxious feeling in my chest.
Even though I get this anxious feeling in my chest.
Thinking about walking by those chips on the table.
Thinking about walking by those chips on the table.
I deeply and completely accept myself anyway.
Accept myself anyway.
Even though I get this anxious feeling in my chest.
Even though I get this anxious feeling in my chest.
Constriction in my chest.
This constriction in my chest.
Just thinking about entering the room with those chips on the table.
Just thinking about entering the room and walking right by those chips on the table.
I deeply and completely accept myself anyway.
I deeply and completely accept myself anyway.
Even though I get an anxious feeling.
Even though I get this anxious feeling.
This constriction in my chest.
This constriction in my chest.
Just thinking about walking into the room with those potato chips.
Just thinking about walking in the room with those potato chips.
And walking by that table.
And walking by that table.
I deeply and completely accept myself anyway.
Accept myself anyway.
And how I feel about this.
And how I feel about this.
Okay, we'll go through the points. This anxious feeling in my chest.
This anxious feeling in my chest.
Anxious feeling in my chest.
This anxious feeling in my chest.
This constriction in my chest.
This constriction in my chest.
Anxious feeling in my chest.
This anxious feeling in my chest.
Just thinking about those potato chips.
Just thinking about those potato chips.
Causes this anxious feeling in my chest.
It causes this anxious feeling in my chest.
This constriction in my chest.
This constriction in my chest.
Anxious in my chest.
Anxious in my chest.
Okay. So when you think right now, just that same visual experience right now of walking into the room that you're at work.
Yeah.
You're going to walk by that table.
Yeah. So the anxious feeling went down.
Okay.
But I'm really focusing on like seeing my hand go in that bag.
Okay.
Like the action of like putting my hand in that bag and pulling out like not 2 or 3 chips, but like the biggest handful I can take out, right? So I only go into one. So the anxious feeling, like thinking about grabbing a handful of chips.
So it is still anxious.
Yeah.
And what's it down to on the scale of 0 to 10?
Really like a 3.
Okay. And is that, do you sense that anywhere in your body right now?
Like right in the back of my head and neck right there.
Oh, how does it feel back there?
Feels like a little prickly kind of feeling.
Okay. Just thinking about putting your hand in that bag. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's tap around on this.
Okay.
Even though I have this remaining anxious feeling.
Even though I have this remaining anxious feeling.
But now it's in the back of my head and neck.
But now it's in the back of my head and neck.
And it's a prickly feeling.
And it's a prickly feeling.
Just thinking about putting my hand in that bag of chips.
Just thinking about putting my hand in that bag of chips.
pulling a big handful of chips out.
Oh, pulling a big handful of delicious chips out.
Delicious chips.
Delicious.
I deeply and completely accept myself anyway.
Accept myself anyway.
Even though I have this anxious feeling.
Even though I have this anxious feeling.
This prickly feeling in the back of my head and neck.
This prickly feeling in the back of my head and neck.
Thinking about putting my hand in the bag of chips.
Oh, thinking about putting my hand in that bag of chips.
And pulling a big, huge handful of chips out of there.
And pulling out a big handful of delicious chips out of there.
Delicious chips out of there.
Delicious.
I deeply and completely accept myself anyway.
Accept myself anyway.
Even though I have this anxious feeling.
Even though I have this anxious feeling.
This prickly feeling in the back of my head and neck.
This prickly feeling in the back of my head and neck.
Thinking about putting my hand in that bag of chips.
Thinking about putting my hand in that bag of chips.
Pulling out a huge handful of delicious chips.
Oh, pulling out a huge handful of those delicious chips.
Makes me a little anxious.
Makes me a little anxious.
And I completely accept myself anyway.
And I completely accept myself anyway.
Anxious.
Anxious.
This anxious feeling in the back of my head and neck.
This anxious feeling in the back of my head and neck.
This anxious feeling.
This anxious feeling.
Handful of delicious chips.
Handful of delicious chips.
This anxious feeling.
This anxious feeling.
Anxious in the back of my head and neck.
Anxious in the back of my head and neck.
Big handful of delicious chips.
This big handful of delicious chips.
Anxious in the back of my head and neck.
Anxious in the back of my head and neck. I don't know if you notice that, but when I clear energy, I usually burp. So when the burp came, I was like, oh.
That's common with a lot of people.
Yeah, very common. And it's very welcome because I know that it means I'm clearing. And as we were tapping that round, I have to say that the anxious feeling completely went away. And part of me went like, well, you can allow yourself to have it once a week and one handful as opposed to half the bag every day. And just choose a day, but maybe choose it depending on the flavor of the chips and wait for flavor that I like more than others. Like that was kind of like what was coming up. Like I don't have to do it every day. I can just do it once a week.
Yeah. That's great. So this is something that I may work with Carol on to go a little bit deeper to find out what is the craving of the potato chips, where does it come from? You know, a lot of people crave certain foods because of the texture, the smell, the saltiness, the sweetness, whatever that is. So, you know, this is something that Carol and I can work on in future sessions when we meet online.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, thank you, Carol, for volunteering to do this. I think this is going to help some people out there, you know, because again, when you're in that corporate environment, that office setting, people just love to share their food and, you know, sometimes we just can't control ourselves.
Exactly.
So thanks for meeting, and I will be posting this in different places. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with me. nevertoolate-to-lose-the-weight.com or janhamning.com. You can get in touch with Carol on her Facebook page, and have a great day and survive those holidays with all this food that's going to be coming in front of us.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Janet, for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.